Hi everyone, it's Rax. I want to throw a quick note here. I've been up for about 32 straight hours, so if I seem a little tired or off, it's now you know why. Today was an important day for Blizzard. We just got done listening to the first of two broadcasts talking about the future of Diablo 4 and what they're going to do in Season 2. This was 2 hours, and they got another 2 hour one on the 10th. It's no secret that Diablo 4 has fallen out of favor with a gigantic portion of their audience. And I've even been playing Last Epoch, blasting it for 2 straight weeks. I'm going to start to pump out all the content for that game. So I was watching this broadcast with a very neutral, open mind. If Diablo 4 fixes everything and wins everybody back, that would be a fantastic result. And if they don't, then I'll play Last Epoch and PoE and PoE 2 and life goes on. So definitely want you to make your own judgments here, but I guess I'm not going to be able to hide it. I was genuinely surprised by the presentation that they gave today. The number of changes that they were able to make in just a short period of time it does not align with anything that I've seen them develop for the game before. So whether that means that they called all hands on deck, or whether that means that they pulled a bunch of stuff that they had coming later in the pipeline to shove it all into Season 2 to get people hooked, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know the internal practices of Blizzard, but let me share with you what they shared with us today in the first part of the live streams, and let me see if you agree that this is a massive amount of changes. Um, so the first thing is they started with the season theme, and in general for the presentation, the season theme seemed a little lackluster. You run around as a vampire, you kill stuff, you get vampiric powers. They have a new game mode that's kind of like Helltide, but it does start at level 1 that you might be able to use to farm up, and you'll see there's a ton of other overworld changes. However, after the presentation, I went through and I read all of the powers. And if you actually read through some of these, they actually seem quite powerful. So, for example, anticipation, just your ultimate skills get 20% cooldown reduction, and increased damage. I don't even care about that. This is going to allow, for example, the Tornado Druid to just stay in the Werebear form with the Rampaging Werebeast forever. You might be able just to be perma bear. And taking a look at another one. Casting a skill heals you for 3% of your life. Any skill. This might be able to keep you alive on the Uber bosses. And if you read through these, I'll make a video analyzing them very in depth and what builds they can go in. But in general, when I actually read through the powers, they were actually a lot stronger than I thought they would be. I can think of a lot of potentially crazy combinations. For example, there's a lot of minion stuff, and there's a lot of synergies here. So if you can acquire a couple of these, and Necro Minion might be shitting on the game next season. So in the presentation, I thought the vampire thing was kind of a snooze fest, but then I read the powers and it got a little bit better. Okay, I don't think there's too much more I want to talk about here. There are Uber bosses, but we'll go to the other blog post, which explains it better. There's new mounts. Look, you can get Rapidash. You can get Rapidash from the Uber bosses and other cool stuff. And then they talk about some other things. Okay, let's go to the other thing. All right, let's talk about all the changes. So they have 5 new endgame bosses, and they showed a progression system of how you would fight the bosses, and it culminates in fighting Uber Duriel. But all of the bosses have their own unique drops, and Uber Duriel can drop the Uber uniques to the point where people are going to have them. People in your clan are going to have them. People on your friends list are going to have them. They're not going to drop every time, but it is possible to get a Shaco now and a Grandfather. Another thing that is tied into these bosses is you're going to see they're going to make an item progression change. They said it's the first of many that they have planned. This is just a small piece of the puzzle. But since the item progression felt so bad, I've made many comments many times saying that you have full gear by the time you're level 75 and you don't hunt for anything. Well, now the min and the max ranges of item power shift as you do harder content, which ultimately means that you can get level 920 gear when you're doing really hard stuff. The Uber uniques that drop off of Duriel are guaranteed to be level 920. So if you finally do get the Shaco off of Duriel, then you're going to be blasting. So that's something that's very exciting to look forward to. And for those of you that are wondering, they said that Uber Duriel will be easier than Uber Lilith because you have to farm some things to go fight him. You can't just walk in his door and fight him. So they wanted it to be a little bit easier. They wanted it to be accessible. This makes sense to me. Okay, so they're changing some endgame activities. Legion events, they're going to come up more often. And same thing with world bosses. This is fine. This doesn't make a huge difference. Legion events are one of the best events in the game for leveling up, like 1 to 50. And I believe, didn't they say, I think there was another change that they made a month ago that gives you a guaranteed legendary when you do it. So again, at a certain level. So low level Legion events could be a very viable way of leveling up. One theme you're going to see here, I guess you're going to see massive buffs everywhere, but you're especially going to see massive buffs to the overworld. So remember, one of the things in the overworld is they're going to have a new Helltide event with a season theme. This Legion event is an overworld event. World boss, you could call it an overworld event. Okay, so those are going to come up more often. They said that golden experience is going to increase tremendously for Helltide and cashing the Grim Favors and the Whispers. Again, unless you're doing a dungeon whisper, all of this is overworld. And they said the gold increase is tremendous from turning it in. So that will help. Nightmare sigils, okay, that's nice, doesn't really matter. Helltide chests are gonna have specific icons. The whisper caches actually give you the loot that they say that they're going to. They should have always done that. Okay. Experience and monster leveling. Okay, we can read through all of this. Here's the simple summary. You will be able to reach level 100 40% faster, which is a tremendous increase. And it comes from the density, and they've added some of the XP bonuses back in, and they've changed some of them to be multiplicative with the world tier bonus. So if any of you casuals out there were saying, wow, I made a character and I didn't have any item progression, which you're going to see later, they're going to change that. I couldn't farm my Tempest Roar. They changed that. Now you can target farm with each individual boss. You can like find which boss has a Tempest Roar, fight him, and get your Tempest Roar. I could never get the Uber Uniques. Well, now you can target farm them from Duriel. You know, they're trying to listen to the feedback and fix it for you. So you're going to be able to get to 100 way easier. Nightmare dungeons. They made a ton of changes here. So first of all, this is huge for anybody that doesn't have a great PC, or anybody really. I have a great PC and this is still amazing. Now you port inside of the Nightmare dungeon instead of outside of it. That saves you an entire loading screen every time you do one of these. That's massive. Should have been like that from the beginning. Not giving nightmare sigils. Okay, that's fine. This is maybe the biggest change in the entire patch. Objectives have been removed from some of the dungeons. Only defeating the boss is needed. I have probably been the most vocal about this in the community. I talked to Blizzard many times. I made many YouTube videos saying, Blizzard, half of the reason why, well, not half, but a reason why people find Nightmare Dungeons so annoying is because you're making us free 7 prisoners. It's just so brutal. No one likes doing that. At the best, give us 2 prisoners or something. Well, they took that a step further and they just straight up said that they're going to remove a lot of the objectives out of the dungeons. And they actually specifically said on the live stream, Rax, are you watching this one? And I almost had a tear in my eye. So if any of you get sick of freeing those stupid ass prisoners or carrying those orbs around and placing them on the pedestals, you're welcome. Multiple Nightmare Dungeon afflictions have been updated. They just made them better. Backstabber is not going to one-shot you anymore. Critical resist is now like a debuff, since it's now a time debuff instead of always applying, so you can kind of play around it. They nerfed Death Pulse. Lightning Storm now is going to give you a movement speed bonus for getting zapped inside of it, so you don't feel like you lost all that time standing in it like a dumbass. This thing, I made a comment. I don't know if this is going to exactly fix the problem. The the protection dome, it only starts if it has a direct path to the player. But a lot of the times that you die to this affix is when you are about to walk into like one of those sealed events and the dome spawns and you're already walking and boom, and then it ports you into the room and the dome's outside and you die. Or you're about to climb down a ladder, you're about to click it and boom, the dome spawns. You have a direct path to it, but then you go down the ladder and then you just die on the ladder. So that's another thing that they should consider. They said that they've massively reworked the backtracking, not just with the layout of the dungeon, but where they have put where certain objectives need to be done. Some of the objectives were in very obscure corners of the dungeon and not along the main path that most people take. So when you're doing a nightmare dungeon, you shouldn't be backtracking as much. And believe me, if we start backtracking, we'll just complain. Anything else here? You can get your Paragon glyphs up higher much easier because they have to do that. Because if you're going to fly to 100, then you're going to have baby glyphs if they don't increase the XP. So it's way easier to level these up. Another reason why they need to level these up is because, again, they're buffing so many things in the overworld. The world bosses, the Helltide, the Whispers, the more XP, the more gold, the season theme. They want you to interact with the open world more. And so you can't do that if you're forced to be in nightmare dungeons perpetually leveling your glyphs. So they needed to do this for 2 reasons. All right. The events. So the events in the dungeons are going to be more worthwhile. This is, I think, needed and important because the events are supposed to be something that you should be excited about. But when I did my analysis in my sheet, which I know a lot of you use, I concluded that most of the events were not worth doing. And this is bad news because for people that like to do nightmare dungeons, not everybody just wants to grind dungeons. Some people only want to be in the overworld. Some people want to do both, whatever. But the people that want to grind nightmare dungeons, the events in the dungeons are your way to acquire some things that you otherwise would have to go to the overworld to farm, like flowers, for example, for your potions. So making the dungeons more worthwhile is definitely the right move, in my opinion. The NPCs should no longer be killed. It doesn't matter if you win or lose an event. You seem to get the same rewards anyway. I don't even know why this matters. But there's another major problem with events. If there's anyone from Blizzard watching, there's another huge problem that I hope that you will fix. The problem is when you walk into the room, the NPCs oftentimes have dialogue. Help! I'm trapped. There's a monster after me. Okay, then the event starts. Then when the timer hits 0, if the NPC survives, which is why I usually try to let them die, they say, "Oh, thank you so much. How can I repay you? Oh, here, take this." And then the treasure chest spawns. Then you can click it. Then you loot it. And then you're leaving. I think all of this needs to be completely abolished. Maybe you enable it only for World Tier 1, the beginner players. But on World Tier 2, 3, 4, anything beyond, the event needs to start. The 60-second timer needs to start the moment you cross into that room. And the second it reads 0, the NPC needs to disappear and just drop the chest instantly. That's going to save like 10 seconds on a lot of events. And that starts to add up. Please, events start instantly and they end instantly. Please put that into the game. They freed up inventory space by putting your gems into a different menu. The way that they did this is actually pretty smart. Because they have a bunch of fragments. You can craft a gem that you need, and you can put it in your gear. So you have to craft it into an item. So this is going to eliminate you picking them up in your inventory all the time. But then, if you have a gem crafted, and then you say, oh, you don't need this piece of gear anymore, and you salvage it, now you have that stupid, annoying gem, you can salvage the gem into the materials, and it goes back into the menu. So that's a pretty nice quality of life thing. Another thing people are going to ask is, and it was asked on the live stream, when are we going to get more stash tabs? They said that they don't have an announcement right now, but they did say they were considering that codex change. if they implemented that code exchange, if you haven't heard about it, where the legendary powers can be extracted and you can level up the legendary powers so you don't have to stack the affixes in your stash and you can only actually keep good items, that would free up a tidal wave stash space among other things that they could do. So they said that they have nothing to announce on that right now, but they're looking at it. So hopefully soon. Okay, Scrolls of Escape automatically cast for hardcore characters when you DC. That's nice. Reduces the chance of being locked in certain areas, locked into certain stats on a legendary item, by reducing their overall enchanting cost. This is the problem. The problem with enchanting is not the initial cost of the enchant. It's the fact that every enchant after that just goes up and up and up and up. And even with the increased gold on the Whispers, people are going to run out of gold instantly. They said that they have nerfed the rate at which the rerolls increase. So now you're not going to get stuck and feel like you can't reroll your legendaries anymore. Now, I do think that it's a good idea in the game to have gold valuable. That makes sense to me. Gold should be a valuable resource. But this re-rolling and the exponential increases or whatever, that was ridiculous. So I'm glad that they're tuning that back. I don't think they should make this trivial, though. I think this should cost you something. I think that's good for the game. So here's a crazy thing. I cannot believe that they did this. And this is in a good way. They are now going to drop shitty normal magic and non-sacred rares as crafting resources in World Tier 3 and 4. This is like a shitty pseudo loot filter where all the garbage loot that drops will just be salvaged and you get it as crafting materials. They implemented this in the final season of D3 to see if people liked it, and people absolutely loved it. With all those shitty yellows that drop and the whites and the blues that you would never pick up. And if you do pick it up, you're like, God, why did I pick this up? It just auto salvages it for you and gives you the materials for it. If this works how we all interpreted it, it should be godly for the game. And it should be huge quality of life increase, and hopefully not that many items are coming into your inventory along with the gems. Makes looking at the items easier, makes stash management a little bit better. Then when they give us the stash tabs and the loot filter one day, then we'll really be pumping. Yeah, so now the item power can go to 920. This is going to help you with your item progression. The Whisper caches can now give you higher item powers along with Helltide. Again, notice they're buffing the overworld. Another thing, I don't know if we're going to get to it here. Yeah, mounts. Okay. They're going to massively buff mounts as well. Miscellaneous improvements. So here, okay, if I'm reading this correctly, we didn't learn about this on the stream. They're going to give you all 5 levels of Renown if you've completed them for every season. All earned Renown is going to persist through seasons and characters. Surprise, we read this here. It says it does not apply to hardcore characters, and it's called hardcore for a reason. So softcore people don't have to repeat the Renown. Hardcore players do because it's hardcore. Philosophically, I completely disagree with this. Let me explain why. You can do almost all of the Renown in the game, almost all of it, in World Tier 1, mindlessly farming, dungeons, and side quests. There is no actual challenge other than the mental challenge or the exhaustion of doing the Renown for the 10th time. The reason why hardcore doesn't feel like hardcore in Diablo 4 is because you have so many cheat deaths and the cheat death potion and the scroll of escape and this and that and this and that. I understand that you want to have these items in the game so hardcore players can attempt uber bosses, fine. But if I were you, I would nerf that. I wouldn't turn hardcore into hard chore where we have to do the Renown. I really don't understand why this makes hardcore harder to mindlessly grind the Renown again. And it certainly shouldn't make changes just based off of me. But the first thing that I thought when I read this was, will I ever race in an SSF hardcore race ever again? Because I want to fight the Ubers on hardcore. I want to race on hardcore, but I don't want to do the Renown again. I hate doing the Renown. I've done the Renown in the alpha, and then the next alpha, and then the closed beta, and then the open beta, and then the next open beta, and then the launch, and then season 1. I want to do it again. So that's just my opinion, but don't get this one. I don't get that. I hope Blizzard changes their mind on this if I'm reading this correctly. You can now mark an item as favorite. God, that's so much better than marking it as junk. You can also still mark as junk if you want, but now you can mark it as a favorite. Wouldn't it make way more sense to mark the 2 or 3 items that are good and salvage the garbage than mark everything that's garbage? Try to hopefully hold on to the 2 or 3 things that's good. Doesn't make sense. So this is way better. 2 additional character slots have been added. Well, I was going to have to delete a level 100 character to play, so that's nice. They are going to give you additional. Okay, they're going to make this easier to complete the campaign. Okay, they're going to give you additional waypoints as well. Prevented wasted minion and companion attacks by ensuring minions and companions no longer target invulnerable enemies. I didn't hear that. Did they share that on the thing? This is great news for Necros. Damn, Necros with the vampire minion powers in this are not going to be attacking dumb shit anymore. Okay. Mounts got a massive buff. They ride faster, and the most important thing is that their speedy cooldown has been reduced by 50%. So you can activate it more, which means you can essentially sprint on your horse infinitely, and now they can break through barricades, and they also dramatically improve the maneuvering of the mounts. Well, this is the right time to make this change. Well, the right time would have been on the actual launch of the game, but now that they're doing the massive overworld buffs, people are probably dreading riding on your mount. Well, now it's going to be a lot better. It's going to move a lot faster. You can sprint all the time. You can break through stuff and turn better. Town adjustments, they just made towns way better. They put stashes everywhere. They put the NPCs closer to the waypoints. They put an occultist by the Tree of Whispers, which is the best waypoint in the game. On the UI, they have a stash search and filtering function, and you can search through all tabs at once. There's a streamer mode. This one's huge. This one's pretty massive. This was the first change that I ever asked for in Diablo 4. The very first one. The first thing I ever wrote down on a piece of paper in the alpha. When an item drops, let's say it's strength, cooldown, attack speed, crit. And then the next one is strength, cooldown, attack speed, and int. The order in which the affixes are presented on the items doesn't have a hierarchy. It's random. So it's so hard to compare side by side which item is better. We need them to have the same order. And now it sounds like they do. So now we can actually compare items way faster, which once we get our loot filter and all these other changes, will actually probably be an okay experience in Diablo 4. So that's huge. They're going to improve the grouping. Now you have the ability to auto run. You can now zoom out on the mini map. Of course, the next follow-up question is, when will they let us zoom out more in the game? You can hide all combat text, vulnerable, dodge, fortified. You can see unique items better, and different stuff. So this is the first part of the stream. The second 2 hours will be, they changed all the uniques in the game. They said almost every unique in the game got changed, which I take to mean got buffed, except for maybe some of the super OP ones. They changed resistances and how that all works. They changed crit and vulnerability. They have a totally new idea there. And they tease that they have a bunch of other stuff planned for 2 hours. So there's probably going to be a tidal wave of information on the 10th. So we come here and we say, okay, well, with the new season theme, with all the powers, with the new bosses and the target farming and the new eye levels up to 920 and the massive improvements to all the overworld activities and the increased gold that they give you and the reduced gold from the re-rolling and from the 40% increase in experience and from not having to do a ton of the objectives anymore, and for buffing the events inside Nightmare Dungeons and giving you the higher XP on the glyphs and porting you directly inside and fixing the super unfair affixes. And you go on and on and on, and fixing the mounts and fixing all the items and making the towns easier and all the stuff that we just talked about. Well, we ask ourselves, how did they do? Again, I think Blizzard in the last month must have just put all hands on deck or pulled some stuff from the future or something, because the volume of this patch, they said it's 41 pages, which will be, the patch notes will be released on the 10th. And mostly, I'm guessing a lot of them are going to be reworking all the uniques. So we're going to have to see the things that we're going to hunt for. I was surprised. I'm very surprised by the volume of these changes. I think they needed something like this. They needed some kind of blockbuster 10,000 items changed in the game kind of deal to try to win back the favor of some of their community. So I just leave it as a question to you. How do you feel about it? Probably wondering how I feel. I feel pretty good with what I've heard so far. Let's see what they share on the 10th. Then, of course, let's see how it actually plays out on the 17th. Let's see if it plays out the way that it was laid out. But I was genuinely surprised. I didn't expect this volume of changes, and I didn't expect a lot of these changes to be this accurate. Some of the changes do directly hone in on some of the problems of the game. A lot of the times we see a lot of changes where you just have no idea where they came from or how they could possibly have came up with that and how that will fix the problem. But they seem to have done it here. I'd love to know what you think. I will read the comments, and I have some further feedback for Blizzard on this, but I will be doing an analysis of these powers and try to see what we can come up with, especially with the new uniques coming out. I think we may have something here that might be pretty strong to fight the new Uber bosses with. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.